As a child in New Jersey, it's a takeoff on the Lindbergh case beyond belief, and it is.
Where did you come across this material? You mean on old records?
No, this is in a book of photos of him promoted in 1970.
Oh, his published book.
Yeah, and then it's another thing about the mob, upstate mob, fixing the ballet, The Dying Swans of the Swan.
Well, I'll tell you about the kidnapped. He said that I was kidnapped. My father, my mother was sitting in a chair knitting a chicken, and my father didn't look up from his newspaper, but when I was kidnapped, they swung into action. You remember the joke? Mm-hmm. They rented out my room.
Yes.
Next question.
I also recall his father fell asleep while reading the kidnap note.
That's right, I forgot.
Yeah.
Yes, we have a question here. Yeah. Shout it out. Oh, there you are. You have a mic.
I remember your strip. Tell us about your style. There's a sort of 70s look there, along with Pfeiffer, maybe. What, this is sort of a looser style, the 70s got out.
What's the question?
Well, tell us about your style. How do you see your style?
How do I see my style? Well, I see my style as probably fifth rate. And I'll tell you that when the New Yorker began in 1926, when I began, Harold Ross was the publisher and inventor of that magazine, and James Thurber was making sketches sitting in an office with E.B. White. Oh. And he was making them in pencil, and they had captions, and he threw them on the floor, and White would take them and ink them and take them into Ross, and he got Ross to publish them. So one of the big cartoonists, I don't remember who it was, cornered Ross and said, "Jesus, Ross, why do you publish that eighth-rate cartoonist Thurber?" And Ross said, "He is not eighth-rate, he is sixth-rate." I aspire to become sixth-rate. Next question.
This question directed to Richard. Richard, what are your three of your most memorable interviews off the top of your head?
The Stooges.
Oh, God. Dick is so inarticulate.
I actually met the Stooges, but it was on the Tonight Show where I think Orson Bean was substitute hosting for Jack Parr, and the Stooges got off the elevator, and it was so funny to see them with their nice ties and their coats and their wives, and Curly's hair was, of course, combed down, and then he pulled it all out, and taught me to cross one eye independently of the other. And I've amazed my eye doctor ever since with this ability. I don't know. I can't answer the question. I was afraid you were going to say the awful question that I dread. Who is your friend? I'm still talking. What will say again?
Off the top of your head.
Off the top of my... Well, the top of my head has very little there. I don't know what to come up with. If you pressed me, Groucho meant the most to me of all the great, great people I had on there.
Okay, next question.
There aren't any two others.
Yes, we have a question here. Yeah. A lady. I have a lady in the balcony, Doctor.
No.
What did you do with your original drawings?
Oh, yeah.
My original drawings were given to the Cartoon and Art Museum. What's it called officially? Ohio State Museum of Cartoon Art. They're out there in Ohio. Ohio is a party dip. And while I'm pointing to this man in the white shirt in the front row that looks like the devil with that mustache. That man is Charles Kochman. He is the executive editor of Comic Arts at Abrams, the art publishers, who came to me 4 years ago at a comic convention and said, "I love your comic strip. I would love to make a book." These things don't work fast. They're glacial. 3 years later, last year, he said, "I think I paid off the right people, and they'll publish it now." He shepherded it from an evanescent concept into this quite magnificent book and made it happen. Can we have applause for Charles Kochman?
Yeah.
And if unlike Cavett, you're a cartoonist and you have something you want to get published, if it's any good, take it to Charlie Kochman. Next question.
I have an embarrassing question, problem. I have a gig across town that I have to get to.
Then go!
But, well, without standing on ceremony, let me, as a little lagniappe and not totally irrelevant, tell you Woody's favorite story about Jack Benny. Does that sound good? I used to hang around Benny and Hope and Burns when I worked for the various Tonight Show stars, Johnny and Jack, and then on Merv's show. And one night, the show ended, and Jack Benny was getting into the elevator on the 8th floor at the RCA building, and some audience members got in with him. That wasn't supposed to happen, but he was so nice about it. And of course, in the 7 or 8 floors, somebody said, "Do you drive a Maxwell still?" Somebody said, "Do you pay Rochester anything?" And somebody said, "Are you really married to Mary Livingston?" Somebody said, "Do you still carry your money in a vault, to keep your money in that vault?" No, you have to be a certain age to get all these references. Young folks, Google it. I don't have time for you. But he's a nice man, and he nodded and got to the bottom floor. Everybody ran out to tell their friends whom they had just spoken with, of course. And Jack said, he put his hand, I called him that by then, put his hand on my shoulder, and he said, "You know, kid, sometimes you just want to tell them to go fuck themselves."
And with that, we'll end it. And so that's it. And what happens now, Miss Christina?
Well, we're going to thank you for coming. Thank you to Stuart Hample and Dick Cavett. And Stuart is going to stick around and personalize copies of his book for you. So the line will form. Actually, Mrs. Hample, if you wouldn't mind raising your arm between the stacks where she's standing right there, we're going to form a line. Thank you all for coming tonight. Upcoming events can be found at strandbooks.com. Thank you all.